In this lecture, we're going to learn about a little more about statements and functions in C++. A statement is a basic unit of computation in C++. You can say that it is the smallest thing your CPU can execute in your program. Every C++ program is a collection of statements, so you're going to have a bunch of statements that are organized in a certain way to achieve whatever it is you want. And statements in C++ must end with a semicolon. We saw in the last lecture that not putting that semicolon is going to result in a compile time error. Here is a basic sample C++ program that we're going to use to learn about statements. In the main function here, we have two variables declared. We haven't really learned about variables, but they are a way to store data in your program. And here we are storing two decimal numbers. One is called first number, the second is called second number. We can do something with these variables that we have in our program. For example, we can add them to have another variable in our program, and we can print that. So you see here we are saying stdc out, the sum of two numbers is sum. So this is going to print 21 because it's going to add 12 and 9, and the result of that is going to be displayed on the terminal if we run this program. What I really want you to notice is that this int first number equals 12 thing is a statement in C++, so it must end with a semicolon. The line here with second number is also a statement, so it must end with a semicolon. Every single line we have here in the main function is really a statement, and it must end with a semicolon. If we don't put the semicolon in place, we're going to get a compiler error. Okay, one other thing that is really important to keep in mind is that statements are executed in order in your program, and the order is from top to bottom. If we go back to our program here, so the first statement is the one with first number here. 12 is going to be stored in memory when this statement is executed by your computer. And we're going to go to the second statement with second number, and we're going to keep going until we hit the end of the main function, and the return statement is going to execute. And when the main function returns or terminates, we're going to get the return value sent to your operating system, and it's going to know if your program ended successfully or with a problem, and the operating system is going to know what to do with that information. Execution keeps going until we hit the end of the program, or if there is any other condition causing for the program to terminate. And we're going to have more details about these things later. I just want you to know that the statements are executed in order in your main function. Another concept I really want you to have an idea about is the concept of functions. A function is really like a machine. You give it input and it's going to give you output. If we look at the operation here to add first number to second number, we can consider first number and second number as input to the function, and sum is the output of the function. We can visualize that like this. So we have a first number and a second number. We pass that into our machine, which is really a function, and we're going to get the result of this function in a return value or something that we get out of the function as our result. C++ has a special syntax we use to define functions. This is our function to add numbers. On the left, we have an integer, which is code name for a whole number in C++. It's a number without decimal points, and it's a whole number. After that, we have the name of the function, and we can name it whatever we want. And after that, we're going to have the list of parameters that we can pass to the function. And this is going to work as the input to the function. After you do that, you're going to have a pair of curly braces. The one is here, the other is here to the end, and within those curly braces is going to be the body of the function. Inside the function, you see that we are declaring a variable which is called sum, and we are storing the sum of first number and second number in this variable, and we are making this function return the sum as the result, and we're going to be able to capture it if we call this function in a function like main. You're going to see how this works in a minute. A function must be defined before its use, so you can't really call a function you haven't defined first in your C++ program. And here is a slightly complete program to really put all these ideas together. We have our function to add numbers. It takes two numbers, first number and second number. It's going to add them up and store the result. And we're going to return sum to be used by whoever called this function. And if you look in our main program, we have a statement here. We're going to store the result of add numbers in the sum variable, and we pass first number and second number in the function, and we're going to have that result stored in here. Here we also call the function with direct numbers. You see that we pass in 34 and 7, and we're going to print out the result here. This is the basic idea I want you to have about functions. They are reusable pieces of code that group together a bunch of statements to do whatever it is we want to do in that function. One benefit about functions is that we can reuse the code here. If you look here, we are calling this function multiple times without really rewriting these statements that are inside the function. I know some of these concepts might be cryptic to you right now. We are going to go to Visual Studio Code and try this in code, and you're going to see exactly how this works. Okay, here we are in our folder where we are storing our projects. I am going to grab the code from the template project. I am going to put that in the current project, which is statements and functions. I'm going to paste that in here, and I am going to open this up in Visual Studio Code. I am going to close the project we have right now, and I am going to open our new project. Let's browse to its location. I am going to open the project on statements and functions. Let's open this folder in Visual Studio Code, and we're going to have our starter project here. I am going to take out whatever we have in the main function and take out this const eval thing. We don't really need it. And we are going to try and define two variables using two statements. We are going to say int first number, and we're going to put in a value, let's say 3, and we have to remember to end this with a semicolon. So this makes our statement. We can encode this in a comment to make this pretty clear. We're going to also define a second variable. So we're going to say int to mean that it is a whole number. It doesn't have decimal points like 2.5. It is a whole number like 1 or 7 or 10. So we're going to say second number. We can give it a name, and let's put in a 7. We're going to store these values in our program, and we can print these values out. Let's print them out first. So we're going to say stdc out. We already know how to do that, and we can say first number, and we can chain these output statements and say the first number is first number. You can do that stdendl, and you can notice that Visual Studio Code is really helping out in auto-completing things we have in our program. Let's print the second number to really practice this. So if we do std, you're going to see that it's going to give us a bunch of options we can choose from. If you want, you can scroll through this with your mouse, or you can just type whatever you want to type. So I am going to do cout, and it's going to try and help out. If I really want, I can come on cout here and click on it, and it's going to be auto-completed, which is pretty cool. So we're going to say second number, and we're going to say second number here, and it's going to autocomplete for us, endl, and we can try and compile this program. Before we do, I want you to guess what we're going to get when we run this program. Give it a guess. We are then going to go to terminal, run task, and we're going to build this with GCC. The build is going to be successful. We're going to open this in our terminal. The terminal goes away, no problem. We're going to open it again, and we are going to go in our folder and do dir, and you're going to see that we have rooster.exe, our program. We can run it, and it's going to say first number 3 and second number is 7. This is what we have stored in these variables. And the benefit of storing your data in variables is that you can change the variables and let the rest of your program really do the same things and pick up the data that you have in those variables. For example, we can put 13 in the first number, and if we build again, this number is going to be picked up by this code, and we didn't need to go in and manually change data in these stdc out statements here. Let's build so that we can see this, and we can close this by clicking, and if we run rooster again, it's going to say 13 and 7. Play with this a couple of times until you really feel confident. And if you have any problem, don't hesitate to ask me. I am going to do the best I can to help you out. Now that we have these numbers stored in our program, we can add them up. Let's say int sum. We're going to declare another variable, and we're going to say it's equal to first number plus second number. And we're going to end this with a semicolon. And we're going to print the sum out. Let's do stdc out, and we're going to say the sum is sum. We're going to print our variable here, and we're going to print a new line character with stdendl. We're going to build our program so that our changes are reflected in our binary here. So we're going to go to terminal, run task, build with GCC. The build is going to be successful. We're going to press any key. We are going to click here in the terminal, and we're going to hit enter and run rooster again, and we should see the sum, and you see it says the sum is 20, which is what we expect. Now we are doing the sum here, but it would really be better if we're not doing the sum in the main function here. What if we actually took this code and wrapped it in a function that we could reuse wherever we want? We have seen how we can declare a function, so let's do that. We're going to follow the same structure we saw in the slides earlier. So we're going to say int. This is going to be the return value, or what we get out of the function. Then we're going to put in the name of the function. We're going to say add numbers, and we're going to pass in the parameters. The parameters can really have any name you want, but you have to specify the type of the parameter first. So the parameters are also going to be whole numbers like 1, 5, 7, or whatever you want. And we're going to say first param, and the second is going to also be a whole number, an integer, and it's going to be second param. Okay. After we do this, we're going to specify the body of the function, which is going to be between these curly braces. I am going to jump to the next line so that this is really easy to see. So I am going to define our sum variable inside the function. It's going to be a whole number, and I can call it whatever I want. So let's call it result, because it's going to be the result of this function, and the result is going to be the sum of first param and second param. Okay, I hope this makes sense. And we're going to end this with a semicolon, because every statement in C++ has to end with a semicolon. After we have the result, we need to give it back to whoever called this function, and we're going to do that with a return statement. And we're going to return the result to whoever might have called this function here. Now that we have the function, we can actually use it. We're going to go back in our main function, and what we're going to do is to reuse this sum variable and store in whatever is returned from our function. The syntax for that is going to be sum, and we're going to say equals, and we're going to say add numbers, and we can pass in whatever two numbers that we want to add up. Let's pass in 25 and 7, for example. We would expect this to give us 32. So if we print the sum again, we can just copy this statement that prints the sum and reuse it here. Let's align this a little bit. And I want you to take a guess at what we are going to get from this program right now. We have these two numbers. We are adding them up. If we get here, this should print the first number, which is going to be a 13. So here we expect to get 13. And by the time we hit this second number statement, we are going to print the second number. It's going to be 7. If we get here, we're going to print whatever is stored in sum. And in sum, we have the sum of first number and second number. So this should print 20, right? And here we are doing another sum of two numbers, but we are using a predefined function that we have here before the main function, because you have to define the function before you use it. Okay, if we add 25 and 7, we are going to fall into this function, and it's going to add those numbers up, and we're going to get a 32 in here, and that's what we're going to return, and it is going to be saved in this variable. If we print it out, it's going to give us 32. I hope this makes sense. Let's build and run our program, run task, build with GCC. The build is going to go fine. We're going to go back to our terminal here. Let's clear so that things don't disturb us, and bring in some confusion. We're going to run our rooster program, and exactly what we have here, we have a 13 from the first statement here. We have a 7 from this statement here. We have a 20 from this sum here, which is here, and we have a 32 that we got from this function. The good thing about functions is that we can reuse them. Now that we know how to use it, we can use it again, and we can say sum equals add numbers, and we can say 30 and 54, for example. You add them up and you're going to get the result. So we're going to print the result, sum, and we're going to put in the sum. I really want you to take some time and play with this statement so that these things make sense. It's really not that difficult, but you just have to wrap your brains around how C++ defines these things. So we have this statement and we are adding 30 and 54, so it should get an 84 after the 32 here. Let's build. We're going to run the task to build with GCC. We're going to click on the terminal here and hit enter. Let's clear so that we don't have things disturbing us, and we're going to run our program, and we have our trusty 84 here. I really hope this makes sense. And as a bonus, I'm going to show you that you can also call things in the std_cout statement here without having to store them in some predefined variables. And sometimes this comes in handy. So you can say std_cout, and we're going to say sum, and you might say add numbers right in here. And you're going to say 3, for example, and 42. And this is going to give us a 45. That's what we should expect to see after 84 here. So let's build and run the task to build with GCC. The build is going to be successful. We click on the terminal here, we hit enter so that we see our terminal with output. We're going to clear so that we see our output without noise. We're going to run our program and we're going to see a 45 here. I really hope this makes sense. The whole point of this lecture was to make you aware of statements and function. A statement is the most basic unit in your C++ program. It basically lives on one line, but it can also spread across different lines. But we're not going to look at that here. Maybe we're going to see that later in the course. Statements are executed in order, so when our main function gets to be run by the computer, it's going to go from the first statement, second statement, third statement, and it's going to go until it hits the end. And we can see that here in the order in which our numbers are printed, it is going from top to bottom. We have also seen that we can split our code in different functions and wrap whatever functionality we have in a function. We have seen the basic concepts on functions. A function has a return value, it has a name, and you have to give it the parameters, and you put the body of your function within these two curly braces. As an exercise, I would challenge you to do a function that multiplies two numbers and call it in the main function here to see the result. If you have any problem, please do ask me. I am going to do the best I can to help you out. This covers all we set out to do in this lecture, and I hope you found it interesting. We're going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to see how we can input and output things from our C++ program. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.